Howdy, all of you delicious people. I am here today to review Superman and Lois Season 2, Episode 4. So, you know what? When I would go on and I would watch Smallville, I feel like there is a very small portion of people they would focus upon one episode. But it feels like in Superman and Lois when they should just be focusing on two people, where I'd probably only want them to really just focus on one person. Because it seems like some people, certain stories are just like, I would rather just click. What else is on? AKA Lois Lane stories. Good God, it just... pushing on. So, we have it to where, man, like, if we haven't had it to where, like, Kyle is to now have, like, this big secret in this episode, and we have Lana, who's trying to figure out how she's gonna beat Mayor Dean, and we have to go on and talk about some harsh moment with Sarah, and we have to go on and also have Jonathan be the ex-Kryptonite police, and we have to... and we have Jordan probably having the best story out of everybody in this freaking episode. Hands down, I think that was the only good thing about this episode, was the Jordan story. And then we just have Superman who just goes and just... beats down Bizarro, which doesn't really do anything. Doesn't really do anything for me, weirdly, and it should, because it's an action sequence. It doesn't do anything for me simply because we of course have his trusty sidekicks supposedly in this episode that go on, and I'm like, what was the point of them? Really, what was the point of the DOD kids? What were the point of they? What were the point of presenting them upon show? To kill more time? Was there going to be a Legionnaire coming up anytime soon? That was like present day Legionnaire, because maybe we've already known about the Legion existing. I don't know. I'm baffled by me thinking that, like, yeah, the Legionnaire, yeah, that's like X amount of years from now. What are you talking about? So going into this episode, they spend way too much time on Lois Lane's story. Like I freaking timed it out. I'm like, did they seriously take like half of this episode to focus on the Lois Lane story that I could care less about? And because immediately when you hear the theme of when you hear something about a cult being put into a show, I'm like, click. Even when I was watching, like, Archive 81 that had that cult, I was like, oh my god, please. Like, I've heard some sifting going on in Superman and Lois about a cult, and I'm like, I'm so sick of that kind of story. I have no interest in a cult story. But let's just keep shoving that kind of thing down people's throats, because stories can't be all that creative. Because we also have it, if we haven't had Lois Lane in another season, go and find some family member that she has to consistently have problems with. Now we go on and have Lois in this season, who is no different from Lois from the first season, to find a family member that she can bicker with because somebody else is just retired. I don't give a I'm out. Sam is like, you know what? I'm tired of bickering with Lois. I'm tired of bickering with Superman. I'm freaking out. And then we have him in this show anyways for this episode, and it seems like he's been used more in this episode than he has before, and so I think I can like that. But uh, do they need him? Doogie Howser? Do we need him? I don't know. Anyways, so but the best hands down story has to be from the Cushing family. That story is just like, man, I can't wait for all these skeletons to come out of their closet and for me to give a like, oh man, like, let's hear what happened with Sarah and her skeleton. Oh, let's hear what uh Kyle has in his closet. I don't care. Title screen tells us to not give about anybody but two people, but then we're forced to all of a sudden have to care about four people. But then wait, there's more, because there's a whole town that you have to give about. This show is not called Smallville. This show should be called like either Smallville or Metropolis, because that makes more sense. To just have a group of people that you're supposed to give about, instead of like a really good Superman and Lois story. The best story for me in this episode is not coming from title screen people. And I am confused. So, let's go on and let's go into that double five. Let's otherwise say it's about that time to go into spoiler time. Spoiler time. It's about that time again to spoil this episode. And don't. I know that we are not in Metropolis. I know we're in Smallville. And like immediately be like, well, it can't be called Metropolis because they're not there. Well, they should be. It would be a different story. You can call it Metropolis, and you could focus on the group of people. And plus, you would also have us justifyingly, like, give us how Smallville kind of left off. Honestly, that'd be pretty interesting to me, but it is what it is with the story. Bring them back to Smallville. Bring them back to that farm. I guess it's just cheaper to do that then. Put them in a small town again. Sure. So, spoiler time, yeah. It's about that time again to spoil this episode. So, having troubles figuring out where to actually start this episode. Let's just go into the cool stuff of this episode. The really cool stuff. So we're just gonna jump around for this one. People aren't gonna remember what happens. We're gonna have like 20 some odd days worth of forgetting what all happened in the show. So in this episode, let's go into the cool stuff. The A+ effort out of what is a lot of F's. So Jordan in this episode, of course, is to go on with Sarah to go to this one convenience store, and he uses his frost breath to go and have a guy slip on a banana peel, so to speak, so that way he can go and drop this thing of alcohol that he was trying to shoplift with. And so these guys all of a sudden realize that the alcohol fell out, so they're running out of this convenience store. So we have the store clerk of this store who's going on saying like, well, hey, like, we have cameras, so if anything, it'll be fine. And so Jordan's like sweating, and he's like in the Sahara Desert, and he's like, oh my God, like they're gonna find out my secret. They're gonna figure it out that I'm a Superboy. So we of course go on and have Jordan who is to call his grandpapa, and I'm like, hey, Sam Lane, I usually would probably call you grandpa, but I'm not going to do it right now, just for in case people don't know who I'm talking to for the show. We of course have Jordan telling Sam about this whole camera footage thing, and Sam is to send Jordan the camera footage, and that part of that video is now erased. And Jordan's like, oh, well, thank you that you could easily just do that. And Jordan's like, and Sam's like, yeah, it's like Candy Crush. That was easy. Like, just to, like, erase that footage. But, like, Sam goes on and tells Jordan, it's like, well, hey, you shouldn't go on and try to fight common crime. You're not quite trained yet. And plus, also, you got to be aware of your surroundings. Like, if anybody would go on and tell you that, that'd probably be Bruce Wayne from Batman Begins. It's like, mind your surroundings, click, and then he falls in the ice. You sacrificed a killing stroke for your sure footing. So we go on and we have Jordan later on in this episode is to come to Sam and tell him as Sam is making his way from out of the house after we have Sam kind of getting an update about things. We have Jordan who's telling Sam, it's like, well, you know what? I think I actually want to get trained now. I want to actually be able to use my power because I think there's several circumstances where it does justify that. And so Sam is like, well, okay, but like this is between you and me. And Jordan's like, cool. So I'm like, yeah, frickin' train this guy. Like, that's only been taking like a bajillion years. Why hasn't Superman been training Jordan? That's my question. Come on. So let's go on and talk about the other son, the one that we would love to just forget what story he's doing, because I would like to. No offense to the actor that plays Jonathan, no offense to the character Jonathan, it's just he could be doing something so much more interesting than this. So Jonathan is to go on, and it seems that he is going to be tempted to dabble in some XK, because we have Candace who's going on and saying to Jonathan, it's like, well, oh, this other guy is really tempted to just consistently use this stuff, so you might as well, because you don't have superpowers. Or maybe at some point, maybe XK will open up his ability to have superpowers. I would love to hope, because good grief, it would be nice to have two super sons. It would be like Superman and Super Sons, because hopefully Lois doesn't get killed off at any point. Yeah, I hope she doesn't. Sadly enough, because I don't like her stories. So, and they would just keep calling it Superman and Lois just because it's the right thing to do. That feels awful that I just said, like, oh, let's kill off a certain character that's the title part of the show. Her stuff is not interesting. It's just not. So, Jonathan is going on and dipping into some XK in football practice. And so we're going on, we're having Jordan go to his coach, and it's like, hey, you know what, like I'm sorry about everything about before, but hey, I just, like, if you have any time to just kind of, like, give me some throws in, I'd really appreciate it. And the coach is like, well, hey, yeah, like, good that you're kind of dropping that ego, and you're just wanting to just be a team player kind of thing. So Jonathan finally gets some reps in after just whining and moaning and complaining to this coach. And so Jonathan, of course, is to take this XK because he's a freaking wimp. He can't freaking do it himself, so he has to go and get some XK going. So that, like, I'll be honest, like, when you go on you workout, like, if you are to ever take a supplement, I have, to eventually increase your chances of being able to work out better, then by golly, go ahead and do it. But this is to not exactly be a healthy supplement. This is to be like a drug that is to go on and eventually have some side effects, which Jonathan is to be aware of. But we'll see that Jonathan is going to be tempted to just continue to dip into that XK, so that way he can go on and save a cat from a tree probably at some point soon, right? So we also have it to where Candace is to mention that when she's to take XK, it's to make her stronger. I'm like, what has she done in this show that justifies her to be stronger at any point? I'm very confused. So, because we never really see this character beyond her being a drug dealer. Isn't that great? So, it's true. So, or her sleeping with Jonathan in one episode that I just like, really? We have to have the talk. So, Jonathan goes on and is to seemingly laser beam have perfect vision of how to just toss this ball, and now he has like bullseye like vision to where it doesn't, like, you can't really know if this is like super strength or just like supervision that he has here. They could just be like, I can just focus and toss this ball. So we of course go on and have it where Jonathan is going with Natalie. I'm gonna go with Natty. Why not? Natalie. And so we have it to where, like, Jonathan and Natalie, they're still going on and on about, like, that she beat him in Madden. I'm like, is there a commercial that I'm not aware of? Is there some sponsor that hey, you guys have like WWE 2K22 coming out sometime in the near future? How about you start promoting that on your show? How about you just start going on and promoting Injustice like you guys did, I think, in the first season? Like, yeah, I'm sure you can go on and promote Injustice because that's still a game that exists, I guess. And promote Lego Batman or something. I don't know. So, but we go on and we all of a sudden have Jonathan who, here's the side effects kicking in. We have Jonathan who's to see a crow that seems to be like going and attacking him. And Natalie's saying like, that crow from like 20 feet away? I don't think he's going to be attacking you anytime soon. And so Jonathan is just like, oh, well, I guess I must have just saw something. Because Jonathan is saying, like, well, yeah, I'm taking some new medication. How much do you want to bet that that story is just going to slippery, dippery somewhere down the line for both Lois and Clark to both know that their son is taking XK? How much you want to bet that that story is just going to come up in the next episode, probably? And where they're like both Lois and Clark are gonna have to confront their son about his XK use. Whatever. So, yeah. So Natalie is telling Jonathan, it's like, hey, how about you just stop smoking weed and just stop taking the sweet drugs that you're on that give you superpowers. How about you just stop that, right? I'm sorry, if any other superpowered drug thing would ever tell you is like, people, when they get drugs that give them superpowers, yeah, they just really want to stop right away. because we really have to where Jonathan wants the edge on the football field. So we're going to go on here and let's just cover the Superman stuff. So, of course, at the very beginning of this episode, it seems that Bizarro is to be in Bolivia, and he's going on and using his laser breath? His heat breath? Like, what is that? That doesn't seem like his cold breath, because it looks like he's like firing a proton pack like laser from coming out of his mouth. What is that? Is that a heat beam? Is that a heat blast? What the is that? Like, I don't know what that is. It just seems weird to me. That's what it really is. So, all of a sudden, since Bizarro is starting to get visions from Clark as he's sitting down eating breakfast with his kids, we go on and we have, of course, Clark now seeing these visions. And so we, of course, have Clark's sons that's asking, like, Clark, how long is this really going to go on? Is there a certain thing that triggers it? And Clark's just like, no. So we, of course, go on and we have it where we, of course, eventually have it where Bizarro is to make his way to Clark. And so they eventually somehow figure out how to track Bizarro once Bizarro is to make it to where Clark is. We, of course, have the moment where it seems that John Henry Irons is to, of course, be in this weakened state where he is to go and grab for his hammer, but he doesn't have his gauntlet on, so he hurts his hand, but he still swings this axe to give Bizarro a run for his money, which is to basically mean Bizarro runs off, as both Clark and Bizarro were going like hand in hand, just kind of grabbing at one another. But before that, we end up having, of course, where it seems that Clark was trying to give an olive branch to John Henry Irons and wanting to, like, hey, you want to share a cup of coffee? And John Henry's like, sure, I'll do that. As we, of course, have Natalie going on and talking about all the adjustments that she's going to do to this suit. That's going to do what exactly? Not quite sure, but we'll figure that out. So, because John Henry Irons is realizing that his suit just is like at the lowest amount of charge left, but we have it to where this, of course, is like the end of an Iron Man movie, where, of course, Robert Downey Jr. is like, yeah, I get it. Like, I get that we're only at like 12%. Stop telling me. Like, I get, like, I understand, but I'm just going to keep doing things anyways. I don't care. So we go on and we have John, who gets his hammer and is tossing it, and so Bizarro goes on, and we have Superman, who figures out how to track him, and so Superman goes and gives Anderson this tracking thing to just say, here you go. And so it seems that Anderson is to pick up on the fact that Clark had gone into those mines and went after Bizarro. And so it seems that we just consistently find it to where both Clark and Anderson are just not on the same page. To where Anderson is going to go, and once he is to track Bizarro, he is to send his DOD kids off to go and take down Bizarro, because Superman isn't, of course, at top level ability to use his powers properly. Let's just say, because visions. So, later in the episode, we, of course, have Superman that's having visions about Bizarro, who is in Bolivia, going on and fighting both Tag and the two other Wonder Twins, which it won't matter past this episode because they're both going to be dead. What was the point of these characters? For them to just die? They didn't even get enough time in the show to even get a name. Tag was on the show I don't know how many times and he got a name, but like these two other Wonder Twins, whoever they are, dead. Who cares, I guess. I would have liked for them to just wipe out that whole entire team, because what has Tag really done for this show? Nothing? That's what I thought. So since, of course, Clark is to realize that the Wonder Twins, whoever they are, who cares? The DOD kids, most of them are dead. Clark is realizing that, okay, since these two are dead, I need to go off and fight this thing. And then John Henry Irons is saying, Lois is like, hey, is he doing a thing? Is he going after Bizarro? And Lois is like, well, yeah. And he's like, okay, I'll get my stuff. My stuff that barely freaking works. I'll just go and I'll just get it and I'll just power myself up. Okay, sure, all right. Just go out there with a 1% battery and you're gonna think you're gonna make a pretty dang good call. So we go on and we have John Henry, who makes it to this battle, and we have it to where John Henry is like complaining to this robot. It's like, or his device, voice, whatever the heck this is, and he's complaining to it where it's like, is this seriously how like this thing flies? And she's like, well, yeah, like we're only at like 12% battery. It's like, So Superman is going on and fighting Bizarro, and we just have like, we don't really have them fighting. It's just like, how can we just like hold on to one another for a while? And so we really just have it to where like John Henry gives like every single blow of this episode, with him barely having any power, but him like mostly like putting in some pretty big strikes here. As we go on and we have like John Henry talking to his daughter, Natalie, and saying like, well, yeah, it doesn't look like this equipment's all up to snuff. Looks like the hammer is getting a little weak. So we go on and we have Henry, who is to put all of his power into this hammer, to have this hammer go and do this one big swing to Bizarro, causing him to leave. And so while Superman and Bizarro were fighting it out, Tag took the opportunity to yoink this necklace away from Bizarro, because Bizarro, I guess, was to drop this necklace, and Tag was to pick it up and run off. So now that I feel like I've gotten most of the battle stuff taken care of, let's get into the just most exciting stuff whatsoever. The Cushing family. Let's get into that. So we go on and we seem to have it be that both Lana and Mayor Dean are having this, hey, who has the biggest secrets with their family. And so we go on and we immediately have Lana, who of course is getting some info, of course, from a girl at some diner. Heaven forbid I remember what her actual name is. And I still don't. Because I don't really see it here. Or if I do, Yeah, so let's just say it was this. Lana is to go to this diner, and some waitress is to come to her and mention that it seems that uh, Mayor Dean is snooping around to get information on Lana, and it's possibly talking about Sarah and her very dark past, about her going on and having an attempt upon her own life. And so we go on, and we now have it where Lana and Kyle are kind of talking about it, and they're like, "Yeah, like I think Sarah is going to be a really strong girl about all this, but like I don't know." So we go on and we have both mother and father talking to daughter about this whole situation, and Sarah's just like, "Well, yeah, like I think that'd be horrible if Mayor Dean takes that whole situation, because I like that was so long ago and." Like really, like I've gone and been a better person since then, and blah 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 blah. And so we go, and we of course have Kyle, who's to re-meet up with Mayor Dean with Lana, and so Kyle has some choice words for Mayor Dean, and Mayor Dean is just going on and like, well, hey, like, you know what? For anybody who's to probably have some demons in a bottle, so to speak. That's an Iron Man reference, but still, it works. Or for a guy that would go on and have his tequila neat, seems like you get pretty messy with your alcohol. So Kyle, of course, has to go on and address his demons by going into a bar. His demon in the bottle just keeps getting uncorked for whatever reason. So Kyle is to go on and meet up at or be at this bar, seeing a girl I believe who's named Tanya Martinez, and he is going and telling her it's like, well, yeah, like I need to talk to you about something. So in other words, probably this girl had an affair with Kyle probably number of times. Uh, and so I'm assuming that's what the secret that Mayor Dean was to go and talk about, unless there's something else that's probably wafting in the air of like, oh yeah, like Kyle was to go on and almost get arrested once, or so I don't know. It is what it is. So really, it doesn't seem like Kyle was to mention to Lana how there might be something going on with the dean's son, and they could probably bring that up. But Lana's like, no, like, I want there to be an even playing field between both of us where we don't bring that kind of stuff up. And it's just like, oh, okay, sure, just sweep a lot of stuff under the rug. That's okay. So now that that's all over, so uh, what else could we bring up besides Lois Lane? Could we just figure something out? So, in the very beginning of this episode, we pick up where the last episode left off in us having Lois going and talking to Allie, because they end up continuing to call this woman Allie in this episode. So we have Lois Lane talking to Allie and talking about how her sister was manipulated by this girl. Blah, 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 blah. Who cares? It's just just rehashing and debriefing us, letting us know that this woman is to manipulate people, and it seems like she's going to go and find somebody to manipulate by the end of this episode, aka really just Lois's boss, Chrissy, at this point is going to brainwash her at some point, I'm sure, and just get her to join this Colt 45. Billy D. Williams. So we go on here, and I don't want to talk about this part of the episode. I want to skip it all. I just really do. Because we have flashbacks with Lois Lane and Lucy just arguing away about either Allie or arguing about that Lois was to drive Lucy and Lois's mother away, and just all of this garbage is just. Can we just flush it all down the toilet? No, we can't. We still have to talk about it. So that seems to be the overall like thing where Lois is trying to be, and this is to have been 5 years ago that Lois and Lucy were having this argument, and so we have it where eventually Lois and Chrissy are going on, and Chrissy is to try and be under the guise of some other person, and is trying to see who would catfish their way to want to speak to Chrissy, and we find out that that Allie's cult is to be calling or giving her an email to just like, hey, if you want to join this cult, come on down. So Chrissy's like, good, we have an address to go to these people and to visit them, and that'll probably help you go and find Lucy so you can talk to her again to try to get her off this path. So we then go on and we have Chrissy, who is to go into this seminar where Allie is speaking. Because when Lois is to go on and sit next to Allie, and after Allie and Lois are done talking, we find out that Allie is not alone in this diner, because 4 guys all stand up and walk off. I'm like, Lois Lane has Superman. What are these guys going to do? Oh, no, not kidnap Lois. What one thing does Lois have to do to probably just signal freaking Superman to come a-calling? But Lois doesn't get kidnapped, but I wish that she would have, because that would have been much more exciting for a Lois episode, sadly enough. So Lois instead is to re-meet up with Lucy, and so Lucy is to have a recording device that is to be recording her at the perfect time to have Lois kind of divulge some certain things about this article. How Lucy at some point was to be an addict and was taking these drugs and was at some point going to take her own life. And I'm like, man, like we've not only brought up that kind of thing twice in one episode. I'm like, man, these people, the stories that they just come up with, it's like, man, you guys are really creative. You got to come up with this twice in one episode. You stories that people are just to write because they're just so creative. Just, So Lucy is to go on and is to say that Lois was to try to take advantage of Lucy in her state that she was in. And Lois is saying, like, well, if anything, like, you are even barely sane in the state that you were in. So, if anything, like, I would go on and use that to say that's the reason, that's the thing that Allie does to people, is to just kind of make them lose their sanity to the point of taking their own life. And this is what this person has gone and done to you, not me. And so once we have that whole thing to be like put out there, we have Lucy, who is to record this whole thing and tell, of course, Lois that she had recorded that whole thing. And Chrissy is to be hearing that after Allie is to have this seminar where she goes on and at the end of it is looking at her like, oh, well, Chrissy, knowing exactly who she is and knowing all good and well that Allie, with what she's saying to Chrissy, is to be very tempting, I guess, for her to go to this path to where we have towards the end of this episode where all of a sudden Chrissy is giving, of course, Allie a little jingle jangle to be interested in what Allie has to offer for Chrissy. So we're just continuing on with this story. Man, I just can't wait. I just can't wait for more of this story to just continue. I would rather have anything else in the show. I would rather have them just show Superman having a super crap, and like I would much rather watch that weirdly than God. Could we go back to like a a Smallville episode kind of thing where we have to have like, hey, like Clark Kent is dealing with a cold weirdly, and now he's sneezing. He's super sneezing. Can we have that? Like, I would be more excited about that infused in an episode than this cult bullshit. Like, but hey, we're gonna have to be waiting from 20 some odd days from now to just hear more about this whole cult story. Ding, 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 ding. So great. I can't wait for more cult story. But yeah, but I feel that so we go on and we had Bizarro, who is to bash into John Henry Irons to the point of him going on and needing to desperately go to the hospital. And so when Natalie and Jonathan are to arrive back at the Kent farm, Lois is telling Natalie that her father is to be hurt. And so Natalie is to scramble to the hospital. And I'm assuming there's going to be something in the near future where Natalie is going to have to confront her father. Just be like, hey, like, I told you that this equipment wasn't up to par, but you went out and fought anyways. So, like, I'm going to just ground you from using these powers until they're completely up to snuff. Is I bet what's going to happen. How much do you want to guarantee that Natalie here is probably going to be the parent to John Henry Irons being a kid? And how it's like, hey, you can't go out there like how you've been going out there, and we have to go on and figure out some kind of power source. So you know what? I want John Henry Irons to go on to the other Earth to have him go on and find a power source so he can recharge his suit. So that way we can at least not have another Lois Lane story, but at least we'll have something more interesting coming out of this show. And we could also have Black Suit Evil Superman back on the show. Because at least we'd have a much more interesting villain than Bizarro. Because we just got a guy that grunts. I didn't like Tal Rowe all that much either, but, like, now we have a villain with no dialogue. Man, they should have just came up with another Lex for this show. They just should have, like, hey, this is this world's Lex, because John Cryer. Anyways, so yeah, I think I'm just going to get out of here. Goodbye, everybody. Bye, everybody. Hopefully I've covered most of this show, but you know, I'm just not exactly jazzed. But we have 20 days to just marinate on this show. Hopefully they can come up with some decent amount of writing in this freaking show. I don't think that they're probably going to take time off, actually. I think they're probably just going to pop out some other episodes and not really have a break so to speak. They're probably just gonna have some. They're probably just gonna have a break, so that way they can go on and just cover other episodes, and then they'll come back with just whatever they want to deliver. But again, like, I could be somewhat more satisfied about this episode than others, but now with the Lois Lane, like, how many times do we have to have Lois Lane with some story where we cringe at? Like, that whole baby thing was like, man, really? Just. And then they have to kind of keep bringing it up in the show, and I'm just like, But then, like, now we have it where it seems that Lois and Sam are on the same page because of all those arguing things with Sam and Lois, which I think if I probably watch those episodes back, because I probably just should, because, like, I don't think my reviewing was all those good in those episodes anyways, but I'll admit that there was a lot of paraphrasing going on and there were some liberties taken, but yeah. But I'm just gonna get out of here. The more and more I just drill in that hole of like, yeah, we get it, Lois sucks. So I'm gonna get out of here. Bye, buddy. Bye, buddy.